Imagine being handed the keys to, one of the most complex, volatile organizations on Earth.
Right, just a totally overwhelming situation.
Yeah, and then when they announce your promotion to millions of anxious people, your main credential is listed as the previous guy's assistant.
Wow, yeah, that is a tough spot.
It really is. Today, we are looking at history's most terrifying leadership transition. But before we step into this ancient blueprint, I just want to take a brief moment to offer a sincere blessing for you.
That's a great idea.
May God bless your day, and may He deeply bless the week you have ahead of you, bringing you profound clarity, unwavering strength, and a deep sense of purpose in whatever challenges you are facing right now.
I mean, I think setting that kind of grounded, intentional tone is just so essential for what we're about to explore today.
I completely agree, because today's deep dive is pulling from the first chapter of the book of Joshua. And we're utilizing the extensive historical and linguistic notes from both the Holman and the NAA Study Bibles.
Two fantastic resources.
Absolutely. We're looking at a moment of sheer existential crisis.
Yeah.
So if you are waking up today feeling crushed by the expectations placed on you, whether you're navigating a massive life transition or stepping into a new role at work or just, trying to hold a family together, there is a highly specific ancient blueprint for you in this text.
There really is. It's incredibly practical.
We want to figure out how you find genuine courage when you are terrified and what it actually truly means to find rest.
To really grasp the weight of this, we have to understand the absolute void that has just opened up in the Israelite community.
Right.
I mean, we are at the geographical and psychological edge of everything. The text starts with a stark reality, and that is that Moses is dead.
Which is huge.
Exactly. The people of Israel are camped out, staring across the Jordan River at a land they have been anticipating for generations. And the transition from the Pentateuch, which are those foundational first 5 books of the Bible that essentially establish the entire Israelite worldview, into this new era hinges entirely on how they handle this specific transition of power.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because replacing Moses isn't just taking over for a successful CEO.
No, not at all.
Moses was their legislative branch, their executive branch, and their direct pipeline to the divine, all rolled into one human being.
He was everything to them.
Right. I mean, he split a sea, he brought down the law from a burning mountain, he sustained them through a literal desert. It's like replacing Steve Jobs or Michael Jordan. But the stakes are life and death.
That's a perfect analogy.
Taking over for Moses is like a junior staffer suddenly being asked to run all 3 branches of government simultaneously during an active war. And Moses held this incredibly rare, prestigious title, right? Servant of the Lord.
Yes. And that title carried immense cultural and theological weight. To be the servant of the Lord meant you spoke for God directly.
Wow.
What's fascinating here is how Joshua is introduced in the very first verse. He is simply called the servant of Moses.
The assistant.
He is the assistant. Now, that doesn't mean Joshua came out of nowhere. The NAA source details a very robust background.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was an Ephraimite, coming from one of the most prominent, politically powerful tribes of Israel. So that immediately gives him a certainly baseline of political clout among the people.
And his name wasn't even originally Joshua, right?
Correct. His original name was Hoshea, which translates to salvation.
Okay.
It was Moses himself who changed it to Joshua, meaning Yahweh saves.
Oh, wow. That's a huge shift.
It is a subtle but massive theological shift. It takes the focus off the man and places the agency of salvation entirely on God. And beyond that, Joshua had seen horrific, grueling combat.
All right, the Amalekites.
Exactly. He was the military commander fighting against the Amalekites, which was this vicious nomadic tribe that attacked Israel right after their exodus from Egypt.
So he had real battlefield experience.
Very much so. He also witnessed the complete failure of his own generation. Out of all the spies sent to scout the Promised Land decades earlier, only he and a man named Caleb had the faith to say, we can do this.
And everyone else panicked.
They panicked, which led to a 40-year delay in the desert.
So he's got political capital, he has intense combat experience, and he has a track record of being like the only optimist in a room full of fatalists.
That's a great way to put it.
But I have to push back on how the text frames him here.
Okay, go ahead.
If he is stepping up to be the supreme commander at the edge of a war zone, staring down an impossible river crossing, why does the text deliberately emphasize him just being the servant of Moses?
Yeah.
Doesn't labeling him an assistant kind of undermine his authority when he desperately needs to project strength?
It goes completely against our modern instincts, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, if we were running PR for Joshua, we would lead with his military victories.
They totally inflate the resume, but the biblical concept of leadership operates on a completely inverted metric. True, lasting authority in this framework doesn't start with aggressive dominance.
What does it start with?
It starts with humble service. The text highlights that he was the servant of Moses because that is precisely what qualifies him to lead.
Oh, interesting.
He spent decades learning how to follow. He accompanied Moses halfway up Mount Sinai. He stayed by the tent of meeting when everyone else left. His proximity to leadership wasn't about him jockeying for the corner office.
Oh, he wasn't playing office politics.
No, it was about learning deep submission to a higher plan.
I see. So his highest credential isn't that he knows how to swing a sword against the Amalekites. His highest credential is that he knows how to be a faithful subordinate.
Exactly.
It's almost as if he isn't replacing Moses at all. He's just the next link in a chain that he doesn't actually own.
That is beautifully stated. And because he doesn't view himself as a self-made conqueror, he doesn't inherit the massive title servant of the Lord right away.
Wait, he doesn't?
No, he doesn't officially get called that until the very end of his life, recorded at his death.
Wow.
It's a title you earn through a lifetime of fidelity, not a title you were handed on your first day.
But knowing that internally doesn't solve his immediate problem, right? I mean, he is still starting at a perceived deficit compared to the legend of Moses. Millions of terrified people are looking at him.
They need a leader.
He needs a rock-solid mandate. This brings us to what I think is one of the most fascinating pep talks in ancient literature, because God speaks directly to Joshua and totally redefines what success in this campaign is going to look like.
It's a massive paradigm shift. God speaks to him and commands him to arise and cross the Jordan. And immediately, God outlines these staggering geographical borders.
Yeah, the scale is wild.
He says the land will stretch from the desert and Lebanon in the south and north, all the way to the Euphrates River and the Great Sea of the Mediterranean, encompassing the entire land of the Hittites.
But there is a crucial caveat here in the notes from both the Holman and NAA study Bibles. This land is not a prize they are winning through brute military force.
Precisely. The language used completely strips the Israelites of any claim to being the ultimate conquerors. The text frames the land entirely as a gift of divine grace.
A gift?
Yes. God explicitly says, I will give you every place where you set your foot, as I promised Moses. It is a pre-existing promise.
So they aren't earning it.
Right. The land isn't earned by their military superiority, their tactics, or their own efforts. God is providing the territory. Joshua's responsibility is simply to step into the reality of a promise that has already been made.
I struggle a bit with that concept, though.
How so?
Well, stepping into that gift still requires facing down heavily fortified cities and massive armies. It's not an empty plot of real estate. Which I guess explains why God repeats the phrase, be strong and courageous, 3 separate times in just a few short verses.
And the repetition is highly strategic. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the first time God commands him to be strong and courageous, it's tied directly to the physical task leading the people to inherit this land.
Okay.
The second time, it's tied to obedience to the law. And the third time, it's an imperative to banish fear and dismay purely because of God's promised presence. God tells him, I will not leave you or forsake you.
That reframing of courage is just brilliant. Usually we think of courage as this raw, emotional state where you just pump yourself up and charge blindly into the fray.
Like a movie general screaming on horseback.
Exactly. But God isn't handing Joshua a blank check for military victory here. He is handing him a legal and spiritual instruction manual. He tells Joshua that he must meditate on the law, the Torah, day and night. So success isn't determined by how fiercely Joshua fights the Canaanites. It's determined by how closely he sticks to the legislative blueprint Moses left behind.
That is the core of it. And if we look at the Hebrew word used here for acting successfully, it's sakal. Both study Bibles dive deep into this word.
Sakal.
Yes. And to be successful or to act prudently with sakal is not a guarantee of worldly wealth, massive property accumulation, or material prosperity, which is, unfortunately, how we often misuse the concept of biblical success today.
Right. It's not some ancient prosperity gospel where God is promising Joshua a fleet of chariots and endless gold.
Not at all. Sakal means the ability to act with profound spiritual discernment. It is the wisdom to execute a mission faithfully, regardless of the external circumstances.
And that only comes from the law.
Right. That only happens because your mind is completely saturated with the law. The instruction to meditate day and night literally implies muttering it under your breath, keeping it constantly active in your thoughts so it governs every single reflex and decision.
So courage isn't a feeling.
No, courage in this ancient text is not an emotional state. Courage is strict adherence to foundational principles combined with absolute trust in the divine presence.
Wait, I want to pause on the structure of that command because the NAA Study Bible points out something incredible about this specific speech.
Oh, the mapping.
Yeah, it's not just God giving a motivational speech.
Yeah.
The author actually embedded the entire architectural structure of the book of Joshua into these first 9 verses. It's highly engineered.
Yes, the literary craftsmanship is astounding. What looks like a simple pep talk is actually the strategic calendar for Joshua's entire life and the table of contents for the book.
Break that down for us.
So, verses 1 through 5, where God discusses crossing the Jordan and taking the land, map directly to the events in chapters 1 through 12, which detail the military conquest.
Wow, okay.
Then verse 6, where God commands Joshua to lead the people to inherit the land, maps perfectly to chapters 13 through 21.
Where they meticulously distribute the conquered land among the tribes, right?
Exactly. And finally, verses 7 through 9, which is the intense command to obey the law and remain courageous, map to chapters 22 through 24, which focus entirely on covenant renewal and the people's ongoing faithfulness.
That completely changes how we should read ancient historical texts. It's not just a chronological diary of some battles. God isn't just giving him a pep talk. He is literally handing him the blueprint for his entire existence.
It's all right there in the first chapter.
But knowing that blueprint internally doesn't solve the absolute nightmare he is about to face externally. Joshua steps out of this profound, lofty spiritual encounter straight into a political powder keg with his own military.
Yeah, reality hits fast.
He has a severely divided team.
A fractured coalition, which is the most dangerous thing you can have in the ancient Near East. To understand this crisis, we have to look back at 3 specific groups: the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh.
Okay.
Years earlier, before Moses died, the Israelites conquered some territory on the east side of the Jordan River. These specific tribes saw that the land was lush and perfect for their massive herds of livestock.
It was prime real estate.
Very prime. So they approached Moses and essentially asked to settle there and not cross the Jordan with the rest of the nation.
They hit their goal early. In modern terms, it's like they reached financial independence, bought their dream house, and told the rest of the company, we're logging off, you guys go fight the rest of the market.
It's a perfect way to conceptualize it. They wanted to tap out.
Yeah.
Now, Moses eventually agreed, but he established a severe condition.
What was the condition?
Their fighting men could not stay behind. They had to cross the river, leave their families, and act as the shock troops, leading the charge in battle until all the other tribes had secured their respective lands.
Wow, shock troops. That's dangerous.
Incredibly dangerous. Only after the entire nation was settled could these warriors return home to the east side of the Jordan. So now, Moses is dead. Joshua, the former assistant, is the new guy in charge.
And he has to enforce this.
Right. His first act as commander is to look at these hardened warriors who already have their safe homes and their families settled and say, you still need to cross this flooded, dangerous river and risk your lives for a war that does not technically benefit your property lines.
That is the ultimate leadership test. How do you motivate people who have already achieved their personal goals to risk everything for the sake of others?
This raises an important question, doesn't it?
It really does. If they say no, Israel is hopelessly divided before they even dip a toe in the water.
Yeah.
The whole campaign collapses because you can't fight a multi-front war with a fractured military coalition.
Exactly. And Joshua handles it by appealing directly to the foundational principles we just talked about. He reminds them of the word of God given through Moses. He appeals to their collective identity. And remarkably, they agree.
But they don't just casually say, sure, we've got your back. They formalize it by swearing a massive vow of absolute obedience.
And this vow is intense. They tell Joshua they will obey him just as they obeyed Moses, but they add this brutal caveat.
The death penalty.
Right. Whoever rebels against Joshua's commands will be put to death.
To modern ears, leaping straight to the death penalty for disobedience sounds incredibly harsh, almost tyrannical.
It does.
But the study notes contextualize this beautifully. In the ancient Near East, this was a standard legal formula.
Yes, but we have to understand why.
Right. What is the actual mechanism behind that? Why do they need to threaten death just to establish leadership.
Because a Bronze Age tribal coalition is held together entirely
Mm.
by personal loyalty.
Right.
They don't have a standing police force. They don't have a vast bureaucratic government.
I don't have a Pentagon.
Exactly. If a massive, heavily armed tribe could just opt out of a war whenever they felt tired or scared, the entire societal structure would unravel overnight and they would be slaughtered by their enemies.
So it's not just some power trip.
No, invoking the death penalty wasn't them just being dramatic or bloodthirsty. It was the necessary legal mechanism that transformed a loose, fragile group of wandering tribes into a single, unified nation-state under one sovereign commander.
Wow.
By legally validating that consequence, they are formally declaring Joshua as the undisputed, absolute successor to Moses.
That makes so much more sense. It's not tyranny, it's national security.
Yeah.
But the core theme underlying all of this intense negotiation, the actual reason these tribes are willing to fight this war at all, revolves around one specific, deeply misunderstood concept, the concept of rest.
Yes, the Hebrew words nuach and shalom. This is perhaps the most vital takeaway from this entire chapter.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because our modern paradigm of rest is completely foreign to this text.
Completely opposite.
If I say I need rest today, I mean I want to isolate myself. I want to turn off my phone, sit alone on a beach, or retreat into my house and lock the door. It is highly individualistic. It's about me retreating from the world. But the Holman and NAA word studies reveal that this ancient culture viewed nuach through a completely different lens. What did rest actually mean to them?
In this ancient context, nuach is so much heavier than just taking a break. It means structural security from enemies. It implies settling, depositing, or remaining securely and permanently in a place.
This is about safety?
Yes, and the NAA notes strongly connect it to shalom, which isn't just an absence of conflict, but a state of holistic well-being, flourishing, and the complete elimination of existential threat.
That's beautiful.
And crucially, this kind of rest is always preceded by intense, agonizing struggle. You don't stumble into nuach. It is the ultimate goal achieved only after the work is complete.
Like the Sabbath.
Exactly. It is deeply tied to the theology of the Sabbath, a ceasing of labor not just because you are tired, but because the environment is finally secure and the work is finished.
And it is fundamentally a communal project. That is the massive paradigm shift here. You don't get to claim you are at rest just because your personal house is built and your bank account is full.
Right.
The Reubenites and Gadites couldn't claim true nuach on the east side of the river, while their brothers across the water were still fighting for their survival. You don't truly rest until the whole community is secure. Rest isn't an individual luxury. It's a collective achievement.
That is a profound distinction. In the biblical worldview, if a portion of your community is vulnerable, the entire community is in a state of unrest. You cannot have isolated shalom.
That is so challenging to our modern way of thinking.
And the theological implications of this stretch far beyond the conquest of Canaan. The NAA notes point out that the author of the New Testament book of Hebrews looks back at this exact historical moment, this physical rest in the land, and expands it into a massive, eternal concept of spiritual rest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the physical land of Canaan was just a temporary shadow of the ultimate permanent rest that God invites humanity into. But the mechanics remain exactly the same. It requires faith, it requires strict obedience to the blueprint, and it is intrinsically communal.
So what does this all mean? We've unpacked an incredible amount of history and theology today. We started by looking at a terrifying leadership vacuum, and we saw that world-changing transitions of power don't begin with inflated egos or PR campaigns.
No, they don't.
They begin with the willingness to be a humble assistant long before you are ever the commander.
And we completely dismantled the modern view of courage. Courage isn't found in blind emotional optimism or brute force.
Yeah.
True courage, the ability to act with sakal, that prudent strategic discernment, is deeply rooted in obedience.
Right.
It's found in meditating on your foundational principles and trusting absolutely in the divine promise that you are not walking into the unknown alone.
And finally, we learned that ultimate rest, that deep, secure shalom we are all desperately searching for, cannot be achieved in isolation. We have to be willing to cross the river and fight for the peace of others before we can ever truly enjoy our own.
I think the application for anyone listening right now is incredibly clear. When you are standing on the banks of your own personal Jordan River, staring down a massive transition or a responsibility that feels entirely too big for you, do not look for a magical shortcut.
Yeah, you don't need a bigger sword.
Exactly. You don't need a bigger sword. You need to rely on your foundational principles. You need to maintain your own meditation on the law. And you must recognize that your ultimate success and your ultimate rest are inextricably linked to the people standing next to you.
That is incredibly powerful. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final, lingering thought to explore on your own as you go about your week. Think back to the very beginning of our journey today, to that ultimate leadership transition.
Back to the servant.
Yes, Joshua stepped into his monumental historic role, known simply and humbly as the servant of Moses. He only earned the ultimate lasting title, servant of the Lord, at the very end of his life, after decades of faithful, quiet action.
Such a powerful image.
So I want you to ask yourself, in your own life's mission right now, whose servant are you? And what title are your current daily actions slowly building toward?
That is a challenging question and, well, exactly the kind of thing worth meditating on day and night.
It absolutely is. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the text. And as we close out today, I want to reiterate our opening thought. God blesses all of you, our listeners. May you find the quiet courage to cross your Jordan, the wisdom to stick to the blueprint, and the strength to fight for the rest of those around you. Take care.